No warning, no press, just Princess Alexandra at midnight handing Catherine a velvet box sealed with QM initials inside, the Queen Mother's hidden jewels and dresses untouched for decades. Camilla was left out entirely. This wasn't a gift. It was a royal reckoning quietly set in motion. The silent night that changed royal history. It happened quietly just after midnight. No cameras, no press, not even a whisper in the royal schedule. Princess Alexandra often overlooked, and royal headlines arrived at Clarence's house in complete silence. She didn't alert staff, she didn't request assistance, or only companion. A velvet box sealed with the initials Q and the unmistakable mark of the Queen Mother. Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, had no idea the night was about to change her life. She opened the door herself, no aids, no protection. Alexandra, his expression was serious, almost sorrowful. No greetings, no explanations. She placed the box on the table, looked at Catherine, and simply said, "It's time." Inside that moment was more than tradition. It was weight, the weight of history, of secrets, of expectations passed down in silence. Catherine didn't say a word. Her eyes locked on the box. She knew it was no ordinary delivery. The velvet, worn but clean, still carried the scent of old roses and cedar, like a whisper from another era. Guards stationed at the back entrance later admitted Alexandra entered around 12:47 am. Awed by sunrise, those logs were gone, erased from the system. The palace security team was ordered to stand down from investigation. No one dared question it. A quiet cover-up was already in motion. This wasn't a ceremonial handover, it was a torch being passed in the shadows. Alexandra, now in her late 80s, had carried the Queen Mother's final wish for over 2 decades. She hadn't spoken of it, not once, but she knew who the box belonged to, and it wasn't Camilla. "I kept it safe," she told Catherine softly, "because she knew you'd need it when the crown forgot what had once stood for." No announcement came the next morning, but behind palace walls something had shifted. Courtiers exchanged looks, the whispers had started. Catherine had been chosen not by title, but by legacy. And that velvet box, it wasn't just about what was inside, it was about what it meant. Because the moment Alexandra left the Duchess of Cambridge was no longer just the future queen, she became the keeper of the Queen Mother's private power. Now let's lift the lid and see what had been hidden for decades, and why it was never meant for public eyes. The forbidden heirlooms, what was really inside that box? Inside the velvet box was a breathtaking collection, not just of jewels, but of messages wrapped in diamonds. At the very top sat the Queen Mother's coronation brooch, last worn in 1953, beside her daughter Queen Elizabeth II at Westminster Abbey. The emerald centerpiece sparkled, untouched, unseen for over 70 years. These pieces weren't listed in the official royal archives. They had been kept deliberately off the record, not part of the crown jewels, not included in any exhibit. These were private, protected. Insiders say the Queen Mother hand-picked them for safekeeping long before her passing in 2002, and she made her intentions very clear. These belonged to her. Alexandra recalled the Queen Mother saying, not by name, not by law, but by spirit. There was a diamond bracelet believed to have belonged to Queen Mary, worn only once in a portrait that vanished from public view. A handwritten letter tucked beneath layers of silk was addressed simply, "With a woman who carries grace in silence." No name, but Alexandra knew who it meant. Every item was wrapped with precision, silk ribbons aged but intact. Some even had tags with short notes. "Hold this when the crown feels heavy. For the woman who smiles through storms." These weren't fashion pieces, they were emotional armor, the Queen Mother's silent teachings passed in gems and gold. Catherine reportedly wept as she uncovered them, not because of their beauty, but because she realized what had been kept from her, and why these weren't just heirlooms. They were trust tokens given not to the highest title, but to the most trusted soul. And one thing was undone. Hobble Camilla, his name appeared nowhere as Catherine held the coronation brooch in her hands. She wasn't just holding a jewel, she was holding proof that someone in the past had seen her coming and believed she would be the one to restore what the monarchy had lost. And while she said nothing to the press, she would soon show the world exactly what she had been given, because the next time the public saw Catherine, that brooch was on her chest, and Camilla, she was nowhere to be seen. Why Queen Camilla was deliberately left out. No mention, no letter, no trace of consideration. Queen Camilla was completely left out of the exchange of underhis, and not by accident. This wasn't a royal misstep, it was a clear message buried in silence. The Queen Mother, long known for her sharp instincts and fierce loyalty to tradition, reportedly viewed personal jewels as moral inheritances, not political rewards they were meant to go to. Those who upheld the spirit of the crown not just wore its titles, and in her private diaries insiders say she was clear about who deserved that kind of legacy and who didn't. Not all who sit beside the throne are meant to carry its weight, she once wrote. Even as Camilla climbed through the ranks from companion to queen consort, her name never appeared in the Queen Mother's personal estate discussions, not in letters, not in notes, not in any of the verbal instructions Princess Alexandra had been holding on to for over 20 years. Some palace staff suspected a personal bias, others called it for foresight. The Queen Mother had lived through scandal, war, and abdication. She believed in image discipline and emotional restraint, and in her eyes Camilla had never truly represented those things. The omission wasn't cold, it was strategic, because if these heirlooms had landed in the wrong hands not guided by caution, humility, and purpose, their power could become poison, and Alexandra understood that better than anyone. So while Camilla wore her new title, the Queen Mother made her own quiet ruling, a final invisible judgment sealed in silk and diamonds. Titles can be granted, one courtier whispered, but legacy is earned. But if Camilla was left out of the Queen Mother's plan, who exactly was written in? That takes us straight into one of the most haunting royal rumors of the last 20 years, the secret clause hidden inside a will no one was ever supposed to see. A will within a will, the Queen Mother's secret clause. For years palace insiders spoke of it like myth, a hidden clause buried deep within the Queen Mother's personal will. It was never publicly confirmed, it wasn't part of the official documents released after her death in 2000. But Alexandra knew the truth, because she had seen it with her own eyes. A clause didn't name names, that was the brilliance of it. It referred only to a woman of grace over ambition, who carries duty like breath and pride like silence. Alexandra, sworn to secrecy, held the burden of those words like a shield. She was the chosen executor, a promise keeper trusted more than any courtier, and the clause had one command: that certain jewels, letters, and personal effects were never to enter the royal vault, to be claimed by protocol, and never to be handed to someone just because of their place in the line of succession. If the crown forget what it was built on, these will remind it. The Queen Mother reportedly wrote in her own hand these heirlooms, including the coronation brooch, a locket with George VI's crest, and even handwritten notes from her time in World War II were kept hidden in a private safe. Read from any formal estate. They were outside legal inventory, no spreadsheet, no catalogue, just Alexandra and the weight of waiting. The clause was a fail-safe created to protect the crown from what the Queen Mother feared most: instability disguised as strength, charm used instead of character. And by passing it all to Catherine, she wasn't just honoring bloodline, she was lighting a path, one that leads directly to a future queen who leads with dignity, not demand. But Alexandra wasn't finished, because what she still carried in her handbag, and had carried for 2 decades, or something even more powerful than jewels. It was the Queen Mother's diary, and a sealed letter that would shake the monarchy's foundations. Alexandra's long silence and her final confession. For more than 20 years, Princess Alexandra kept 2 things locked away from the world: the Queen Mother's private diary, and a single sealed letter written in her final year. She never spoke of them, not to courtiers, not to Charles, not even to her closest family. She waited as the monarchy changed, shifted, fractured, watched headlines grow colder, loyalty fade, tradition stretched thin. And then came 2025, the moment she couldn't ignore. She believed the crown was at risk, not from enemies, but from within. And that's when she finally acted. She feared the crown would survive but lose its soul. Alexandra reportedly told her aide inside the Queen Mother's diary were pages filled with quiet dread notes about the changing nature of duty, worries over performative loyalty, and one recurring line, underlined in red, "Grace must be protected." It was clear she had envisioned someone not by name, but by presence, someone who could carry the weight of the monarchy without bending it to ego. Alexandra confessed to her aide that she saw that person in Catherine years ago. She doesn't chase the spotlight. The spotlight follows her. The Queen Mother had warned her not to interfere unless the time was right. Alexandra waited until she felt that moment had arrived, and only then handed over the jewels, the box, and the sealed letter. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was loyalty. A promise kept no matter how much the world changed around her. And in the very last entry of her own journal, Alexandra wrote one line that would later stun even senior courtiers: "I was never the heir. I was only the vessel. Her faith lived through me." With the confession made and the contents passed, Alexandra stepped back. Her part was done. But what she passed on next would speak louder than any interview or broadcast, because inside that velvet box, beneath the final piece of silk, was a note written in the Queen Mother's unmistakable handwriting, and it didn't just name Catherine, it crowned her in spirit. The note that shook the crown. Folded carefully, aged but untouched, it was written on royal parchment. The seal was gold, the ink was fading, but the words were crystal clear at the top: "To the future queen who wears grace, not pride." The Queen Mother's writing had a elegant tilt, no room for misreading. This wasn't a casual note, it was a moral declaration sealed and stored away for the day when symbolism would speak louder than law. She spoke of values, restraint, dignity, service without spectacle. "You will know her not by ambition, but by presence," she wrote, and beneath that one chilling line, "The world will love her before the crown does." She never mentioned Camilla, not once, but the message was clear. This wasn't a rejection, it was a redirection. The Queen Mother had seen the future unraveling, and she wanted the monarchy to remember its heartbeat, not just its headlines. The note made one final request: that the jewels never be worn in excess, but only in moments where truth needed reminding. Catherine read it alone, no press, no announcement. But that same week she stepped out at a small charity event surrounded by local families, and on her coat, the Queen Mother's coronation brooch gleaming like history reawakened. The effect was immediate. Social media exploded. Headlines declared the return of Grace. The Queen Mother's heir steps forward, and behind palace walls it was confirmed Camilla had not been informed. The Queen Mother's note didn't just shake the crown, it redefined who it was meant for. And as Catherine stood quietly smiling for photos, the message was loud enough for all to hear: the real queen had just been chosen. Drew Camilla is breakdown behind palace doors. The moment Queen Camilla found out about the handover, palace aides described the atmosphere as tense, icy, and explosive. She had been told nothing, not by Alexandra, not by Charles, not even by staff who knew something was coming. And when she saw the photo, Catherine standing in a quiet charity hall wearing the Queen Mother's coronation brooch, everything shattered. She locked herself in her study at Clarence House for nearly 6 hours. No calls, no food, no word. Staff reported hearing her voice echoing through the doors, furious, broken. How dare they decide my worth? To her, this wasn't about jewels, it was about status, legacy, and humiliation. The Queen Mother's open silence, Catherine's quiet rise, Alexandra's covert loyalty. It all hit at once. Camilla reportedly felt betrayed by the very family she believed had accepted her. In private, she demanded answers. Was this discussed with Charles? Why wasn't I told? Her closest aide admitted they had no idea this was coming, but the truth was someone in the palace did, and they kept it from her on purpose. Senior courtiers warned her not to react publicly. Don't provoke this, you'll lose public sympathy. Or inside those walls the damage was done. She wasn't just left out, she was deliberately excluded. Camilla, for all her years beside Charles, had never truly been seen as part of the moral bloodline. She had the crown, yes, but not the Queen Mother's try. Just and no title could change that. They made their choice, she told a friend, And it wasn't me, hurry. From that day on, her appearances grew fewer. Dinners with Charles shortened, tensions around her rose. For the first time, Camilla felt like a guest in her own palace. But the man caught in the middle of it all, King Charles, and what he did next revealed more than any official statement ever could. King Charles, torn between wife and ghosts. When the truth reached King Charles, he didn't rage, he didn't question, he simply sat in silence. According to palace insiders, he read the Queen Mother's letter 3 times before whispering, "These were your mother's jewels, not mine." It wasn't resignation, it was recognition. Deep down, he knew his mother and his grandmother had always carried private doubts about his choices, and now, decades later, those doubts had risen from the grave. Wearing velvet and diamonds, advisors urged him to stay out of it. Golly, he had no power to reverse the handover. The Queen Mother's personal effects had never entered royal inventory. They were protected heirlooms sealed by Alexander, his promise, and passed by will, not by whim. Charles reportedly told one aide, "This wasn't about the throne, this was about her approval. And I never really had it." In the weeks following the reveal, subtle changes unfolded. His warmth toward Camilla faded, their public hand-holding stopped, private dinners were often separate. He became quieter, more reflective. To some it looked like distance, to others guilt. Because this was more than jewelry, it was a message that even in his moment of victory, his past still followed him. The Queen Mother hadn't passed judgment publicly, but she had passed it privately, and now the world knew. "I loved her," Charles told a trusted friend, "but she never saw me as the crown, only the consequence." The question now wasn't whether Charles supported Catherine. That much was clear. The real question was, would he finally step aside from trying to reshape the monarchy and lead Catherine define it instead? The answer was coming, and it would arrive in the form of one image that would shake Britain's soul. Catherine's quiet rebellion, wearing the brooch in public. No speech, no statement, no palace memo, just one brooch and a moment that stunned the monarchy. It was a small charity event in Norfolk, mid-October 2025. Local children's hospice. The cameras were minimal, the setting simple. But as Catherine stepped out of the car, something shimmered on her coat. A piece unseen for over 70 years, the Queen Mother's coronation brooch. There it was, gleaming under soft sunlight. No press release had mentioned it, no stylist had highlighted it. But those who knew instantly that brooch had never belonged to Camilla. It had never even surfaced in public archives. It had been locked away. Until now, she didn't have to say a word. One royal photographer whispered that brooch said everything. A photo went viral within hours. Headlines erupted. The return of grace. Catherine wears the crown's soul. The Queen Mother has spoken. What stunned people most wasn't the jewel itself. It was the message. Catherine had been chosen, not crowned by a ceremony, but endorsed by a ghost, a private rebellion disguised as poise. Inside the palace, senior staff understood the weight of it. "She's sending a message without breaking a single rule," one courtier said. "It's elegant and unstoppable." Even former aides to Queen Elizabeth II reportedly smiled at the move. Camilla notably withdrew from public events that same week. No comment was given, but sources said her mood was visibly shaken. Catherine didn't speak to the press. She didn't post a photo. She simply continued greeting families, comforting children, honoring the day. But to the royal world, this wasn't just an outing. It was a coronation without a crown. "She doesn't need to be announced," a former aide to the Queen Mother remarked. "She needs only to appear." But now, with the Queen Mother's wishes exposed, Alexander his confession made, and Catherine stepping forward in plain sight, the final question loomed: what else has been hidden and is still waiting to come out? What secrets still remain sealed in the vaults beneath the stone walls of Windsor Castle? Far below the public chambers and staterooms lies a space few have ever entered, guarded by iron gates, biometric locks, and around the clock surveillance team. This lower-level vault is where the most sensitive relics of the monarchy have always been kept. But in one corner of that cold, silent room, away from the glittering crowns and military medals, sit dozens of velvet boxes, untouched since 2000, to each one marked with the same delicate gold initials QN. 4 years royal staff passed them by without thought storage, they were told pride, but keepsakes. But now, after a Princess Alexandra's secret midnight handover to Catherine, everything has changed inside those velvet boxes. Experts now believe or not just jewels or trinkets, but warnings, strategies and secrets preserved by the Queen Mother herself, a woman known for her obsessive documentation, razor-sharp memory, an unshakable grasp of royal survival. She had lived through abdication, war, death, and scandal. She knew what broke monarchies and what saved them. Historians close to the palace now suspect that among the sealed contents are handwritten letters meant for future monarchs, offering personal insight on what to do and, more importantly, what never to do. There are whispers of private diary entries from her final years where she allegedly spoke Dudley about the dangers of modern royal image, the misuse of charm, and the slow erosion of duty. Some claim she even left succession notes written in the aftermath of her brother-in-law Edward VIII's abdication as a precaution should history begin to repeat itself, and that fear is growing because Alexandra, his recent delivery to Catherine, was not random, it was coordinated, precise. His and done at a time when the crown's moral center appeared to be slipping. There's more, said one former royal staffer anonymously. She didn't leave just one message, she left a blueprint. According to insiders, the Queen Mother may have developed what some are now calling a shadow safeguard, an emergency monarchy protocol not recorded in government or royal documents, but passed down through whispers. Locked box, says, and trusted hands, a guidebook for how to rebuild the crown from inside. Shouldn't